if you are a British citizen, your money not only goes to supporting Hamas by supporting UNRWA, not only goes to the UN and supporting every dictatorship around the world, but of course also goes to the NHS to support some, as the title suggests, Mengele-Wannabe, although it's good to put out the disclaimer, she isn't doing any experiments on people as far as we know. It's like I'm not sure if Mengele considered the people he did experiments on as people. So the way this person talks about Jews might suggest something similar. But again, we are just talking about. Well, we'll cover what exactly she said. Dr. Rahme Aladwan. She's a NHS doctor, and she recently, finally, has been suspended from practice for 15 months after sort of like a long ordeal. She has been having certain statements about the Jewish people, the Israeli lobby, the Jewish lobby, the Israeli influence for a long time. Originally in September, they didn't impose any sanctions on her, but now they finally did. We'll also talk about, the way she's taking it and all that. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Daniel. Joining me today is James Valiant. And I guess it's better to start with some of her comments. So this is just some of the things she said. We'll bring up more things later. But she talked about, this is quote, I will never condemn 7th of October. The world sees you kneeling before your Jewish supremacist masters and the Israeli lobby. This is a betrayal of your doctors. Stand with them, not with supremacy, genocide, and apartheid. Let's make this crystal clear. Anti-Zionism means Israel has no right to exist. No debates, no exceptions. Israel is genocide. Its supporters are genocidal, and that includes over 90% of Jews on earth. So, this person, James, seems to sort of like say the quiet thing out loud. When people say, we're not anti Semitic, we're just anti Zionist. She's like, yeah, we are anti Zionist, which means we hate all Jews. She sort of says it with almost little separation between that.
Yeah, Israel has no right to exist. Jews as a category of people are rotten human beings. She articulates a kind of racism that would mean in practice that she would have to be bigoted in her behavior. Um, Let me just say that I would say that if I were a Muslim going to her, I wouldn't have her as my physician, not as a Muslim. If she has that kind of irrationality, if she's willing to speak that kind of irrationality, if she's willing to say it like that, then yeah, she has. She may not be, as you point out, Mengele may be an extreme comparison. I do not know that she's conducted medical experiments on children. I mean, and that's a pretty extreme, thing to say. On the other hand, she expresses total Nazi type hatred of Jews as an entire category. Israel has no right to exist. There's a supremacy on their part. They apparently rule the world, by implication. But her judgment as a physician obviously has to be called into question. And then, of course, the way she would treat people, the equality of her treatment as a physician. Certainly, if I was Jewish or a Zionist, I would no more go to her. But even a Muslim should think about the bad judgment that this allegedly highly educated physician has. Now, this is also a condition, this is also the result of socialized medicine. This is the situation you will always and continuously find yourself in, my friends in the United Kingdom, because of your National Health Service. If Daniel and I lived in the same country with socialized medicine, his health choices would become my business. Daniel, if you're not on a proper diet and you're not eating and exercising well, you're a cost to me. And so your personal health decisions become my personal business under socialized medicine. And so if you're overeating and you're not getting exercise, you're hurting me and everyone else. So your life decisions now become my business because it's taken out of me, my income by force. Well, there's a similar thing that goes on with doctors. Normally, the political opinion of physicians is not, shouldn't even be on the radar screen. But suddenly the political opinions of every single physician out there become relevant because they work for the government. No one working for the government should be allowed to have such bigoted positions. If you work for a government, whether it's the British government or the American government, and you have these disgusting, bigoted, racist opinions, she should be fired, not merely suspended. She has no business working for a government that is responsible for delivering equal services, equal justice, equal protection under the law. She cannot have discriminatory opinions and be an employee in any way, even subsidized by the British government. So, if in a truly free market, if we had a truly free market, physicians would have, I hope, the good sense to, if they had extreme political opinions, to keep them to themselves. If they didn't have that good sense, then it would become known that these people are bigots, and no one in their right mind would go to them as a physician, knowing them to be the savage. I mean, because nothing could be lower IQ opinion than racism. This woman is dumb, but I know it's a cognitive kind of, I'm not talking about her IQ, I'm talking about her whole cognitive approach to thinking and evaluating. I would not trust her diagnostic opinion if she has such a crude, barnyard level of racist level of humanity. She is not a person whose judgment I would accept, as I say, even a Muslim patient. But the free market should sort that out. Physicians have a right to free speech. And only insofar as they work for the government should that become a concern for anyone. But the minute they do, it's like teachers in public education. The minute they're expressing political views, suddenly it becomes everyone's business because these are the people teaching our young people. If it was private education, then it would be up to the customers to decide what teachers or what physicians they go to. But when government takes over a field like medicine or education, because they're so important, being so important, and they are, education and healthcare, high in the priority list. On the other hand, when the government steps in, suddenly the people's politics becomes relevant. Suddenly, her free speech is, I'm afraid, she has to be muzzled from having her opinion, however hateful, crude, stupid, despicable, savage, knuckle dragging her racism is, which it clearly is. A person should be free to engage if people are voluntarily wanting to talk to someone who makes these kind of public statements. They should be free to go to her. Other Islamist bigots, other people think Palestinians are all victims in genocide and Israel is inherently genocide, or that the Jewish people think themselves inherently superior to everyone else on the planet. If you have those kind of ugly, stupid, barnyard level, crude kind of, the worst kind of, in my country, hillbilly hick kind of, cliche of what stupid, ignorant opinion is, coming from an MD, a medical doctor, well, then you're free to, just as you're free to go to an auto mechanic to get your appendix taken out in a truly free market. You'd have to make that judgment for yourself. But should British taxpayers be paying the bill of a doctor who's willing to express this kind of bigotry? And that kind of bigotry, if you're willing to express it out loud, is going to come through in your professional conduct. You're telling me that even on a subconscious level, she's not treating, her Jewish patients differently? No, it should be well known. It would be publicized in a free market. People with such horrific opinions would be shunned properly, but that's the way to do it in a free society. When the government is paying for your health care, you cannot have people who are obviously expressing opinions that are inconsistent with delivering equal services to all subjects of the United Kingdom. Okay, so she should be not just suspended, she should be fired. There's no way that the government, that the good taxpayers of Great Britain should be funding her a paycheck. She is a bigot. She is a racist of the lowest order. She regards Israel itself. Forget what happened. She'll never get this. She's a physician who's dedicated to the preservation of human life and health, and she will never apologize for October 7th. Where people were burned alive, where rape was used systematically, where innocent civilians were just slaughtered in a surprise attack their bodies mutilated and dragged through the streets, and she thinks that that's nothing to apologize for. She is disqualified as a physician, in my view. No one should go to her as a physician. She's obviously a despicable human being, all the way down. If she has that kind of judgment, given the fact that she's apparently a medical doctor, she must be highly educated. There's no excuse for her to have these savage kind of opinions. So, but having an opinion that she'll never apologize for October 7th means that no one in their right mind should go to her for medical diagnosis or treatment. I would not let her, diagnose a hangnail on me, much less do anything more significant. Her judgment on this, what October 7th is, and its moral status makes her disqualified as any kind of caregiver, in my view, obviously. But as I say, it becomes the public's business when you have socialized medicine. So, people of Great Britain, the politics of your doctors becomes relevant only because you have government providing the service. And that will always be the case. You're not only going to have inferior service and long waiting lines, you're going to have to worry about, well, is this physician now going to give me adequate service? I'll have to look into their political opinions, look at their social media posts, just to figure out whether or not this doctor should even be working for the national healthcare system. Okay, that is a situation will forever be in, so long as you endure socialized medicine. And look, it's only a suspension. Maybe they'll put her back on the job without any kind of penalties. And then Jewish patients will sometimes be compelled, after a long waiting list, to have to endure treatment, Jewish patients, from this bigot, from this crude, knuckle dragging bigot, who has an MD after her name.
We have a super chat from Race. Thank you so much. He says the difference between this person and Henry Ford is when forced to choose between creation and destruction, Henry Ford would choose creation. I don't think we would have to force Henry Ford into making that choice.
No,
And
he
we'll
was
go
doing it
into
for
her in
good,
just a
selfish
little bit.
reasons. And the good, selfish reasons that Henry Ford had for making profit are what advanced humanity more than anything that any humanitarian, in fact, all the humanitarians in history could not have done with their charitable activities. A fraction of what Henry Ford did in terms of helping the ordinary lives of working class people through his for-profit activities. Just make a point there.
And we have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And a super chat from Yair. Yair is asking, should she be put on trial? Where I think there should be an investigation which is being done. Basically, after 6 months, there should be another review of her action, what she's done. So definitely look into it. She should be investigated. I mean, again, when somebody, I think, can be grounds for investigation, especially if you are working in public field. But as of right now, I don't think there's anything. Although to some extent there is a question, and it will very much depend on the investigation. Because I don't know, James, are you a big fan of House MD, the show?
Oh, the show house? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
yeah.
So there is a one episode, I think it's called The Tyrant or the Dictator, where they have like this some African dictator who comes in with some rare condition and they have to treat him, and they end up disguising that they killed him because he was committing ethnic genocide in his own country. And there is a question of Hippocratic oath of do no harm, basically, right? And there is a question, especially with this person who openly says that every Jewish person is supporting the Israeli state, that is committing genocide, that is having this Jewish supremacist. What if she has and she can like hide something, which again, alleged, we don't know anything, but what would she do if that is a way to sort of get away with it, right? We have no idea to say. Like, would she view it even as a doctor? Would she view it as more preferable? Getting like she's somebody who had no problem with October 7th, right? As a doctor, so she clearly saw that as less evil. Killing innocent Jews, killing kids, killing even foreign nationals that were at a concert or in the area is an okay thing to do because of the supposed evil that is being committed to Palestinians.
Right. Rape, mutilation, babies, No problem there. Taking hostages, she'll never apologize for that, which disqualifies her judgment as a physician or any kind of caregiver, in my view, right off the bat. But think about what would really happen here. She should be free to state her opinion. And it really does come down to the fact that, well, look, Britain has hate speech laws, and people are prosecuted for hate speech laws. Will she be prosecuted for what I regard as bad hate speech laws? I don't know. She certainly stated racist, horrible things, things that, in my view, can only incite violence against Jews. Now, I am an opponent of those British hate speech laws. Okay. The reason why is because it actually stifles her free speech. Doctors who have these bigoted attitudes are less likely to state their honest opinions given those British hate speech laws. Furthermore, if
Yeah,
they want
we should mention because I think sometimes people over exaggerate sort of the hate speech laws. The
to,
way it's written in the UK code is basically sort of a speech that inspires racial hatred is prohibited, and that is what.
think saying that, I'll never apologize for October 7th and Israel is genocide, the whole of Israel, not just the response to October 7th, but Israel as such is
All
genocide.
Jews.
Yeah, Jews, who think themselves inherently superior, supremacists, right? She says things that I think would come within that, although it is, I grant you, the whole law is still corrupt. The free speech has been eroding in the West, and obviously I'm an opponent of these free speech. Giving her the freedom to speak will give customers the information they need. Furthermore, working for the government will muzzle her opinion. Insofar as she's a government employee, she'll be less likely to risk her job in saying such things. When she says such things, if she's only suspended and then put back into the system, or whether she's suspended altogether simply for her speech, that is the result of having socialized medicine. Now, as I say, in a sane world, in a world of actual freedom, guess what? Patients should decide which physician they go to. And these opinions should be well publicized, as her opinions have been well publicized, so that customers know what they're getting into, um, straight up. And that's a much saner, better world than what might happen here. Let's consider the things that might happen here. She might get put back on the line as a physician in the NHS, and Jews might be forced, Jews who might not know her opinion, might be forced to use her as a physician. That is truly wrong, evil. No one should be compelled to be put in that situation. The long waiting lines with the NHS, you'd be compelled to go, if you were Jewish, Brit, you would have to be compelled perhaps to go see her as a doctor. That is wrong. No one should be compelled to go to her as a doctor. Let's say she gets suspended because of what she said. Oh, so you're telling me Muslim fanatics can't even choose to go to her as doctor? Well, that restricts their right and her right, no matter how hateful and vicious and awful her opinions are. And as I say, even if I were a Muslim, I would never go to her as a doctor because of her statements on October 7th. That tells me something about the way she values or disvalues human life. And so that is inconsistent, that seems to me, with being a competent medical professional.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. And yeah, when it comes to the decision, so when she was going to this the General Medicine Council, she of course wore a necklace that had 7O on it. So again, like we are talking about the person who's not even hiding it, is openly or has. This is not even like plausible deniability. If you are being, if the one of the statements that you are being sort of possibly sanctioned for is that you don't think October 7 was a bad thing, and then you go to the meeting where you are supposed to be sanctioned with a necklace with 7 and O on it, I don't think I'm like making like conspiracy about what is really happening here. After the suspension, she said, "Thank God for everything. Let this decision stand as the definite proof that there is no independent British medical regulation." So again, throwing the idea of a Jewish lobby or some Jewish influence. When again, I think if this was any kind of bigotry, I think it's only that the Jewish bigotry is the one that is being
Yeah,
most accepted right now and most basically being portrayed, right? Right?
that's
It's
what's
you
on the
have
rise. It's not Islamophobia or Muslims getting standard treatment. But going back to your house example, a take the Hippocratic Oath and let's set it aside for a second, morally speaking, because I think that anything like that, those kind of moral considerations only kick in a certain context. If you're faced with a dictator, a true, let's say, an evil, dictator, a doctor should be free to say, I don't want to cure this guy. There were two National Guards people that were shot in D.C. in my country yesterday, and everyone, including the shooter, are in critical condition. They are working just as diligently to save the life of the shooter as they are the victims. And people say, well, that's dubious, but that's what doctors do. But should doctors be free to say, no, this guy's so awful, I won't treat him? Yes, they should. If I were a doctor and asked to come treat Hitler or Stalin, I would say, no, I will not help this monster survive. I don't care what the Hippocratic Oath says. An ethical doctor should have a right to refuse that kind of treatment. Now, if you work for the government, you don't have that. The government should provide its services equally to everybody without any form of invidious bigotry or discrimination. Now, the fact that you have, again, I'm going to return full circle here, the fact that you have a national health service puts you inherently in this dangerous situation where doctors are compelled to, and think of this hate drenched, irrational, savage, as I say, knuckle dragging person with an MD after their name. How that happened is, I think, a statement about our educational system. But in any case, with an MD after her name, what we have is a system that allows her and could compel Jewish patients to go to her because it is a socialized medical system. Now, fortunately, she is under suspension. But as I say, in either case, whatever the outcome, it's not going to be right. It's not going to be just. Right? I don't have any sympathy for her. None, whatever. On the other hand, I have what I have sympathy for is the idea of individual freedom and individual choice. No matter how hateful her statements, so long as they don't directly incite violence, she should be free to make them. And if she makes them public, she has the poor judgment to make such savage opinions public. Customers should be free to take appropriate action. And appropriate lobby groups should be able to proclaim that from the skies so that her career is ruined. That's the way, and there'd be no government saying, well, we've violated her rights and therefore we have to take her back, and therefore Jewish patients might actually have to be her patients. That is wrong. That is unjust. That is what happens when you have medical care at the point of a gun. And don't pretend, my British friends, that you have anything else. You have medical care derived at the point of a gun and forced upon you with limited choices at the point of a gun. And don't pretend otherwise.
um Oh, I saw something in the chat that I wanted to. Somebody said she also denies Holocaust. I've seen that some articles alleging it. I couldn't find like a specific quote, so I'm not sure if it like she deleted it or where it was exactly. But yeah, good to say. But
It wouldn't,
I've just
well,
seen some like articles alleging
yeah,
it.
I
It
mean,
wouldn't
right.
be sort of outside of the thing.
Oh,
One thing I do want to comment on the sort of. I mean, you mentioned the National Guard example and the shooter was also being treated because I'm wondering I mean it's hard to say that like doctors should be compelled to treat somebody but I don't know how do you remember the quote from Ronald Reagan, I hope all of you are Republicans,
right.
none of you are Democrats or
A little
something like
quip,
that.
a little quip, because most doctors don't care, and good doctors don't usually care, and I can
Yeah,
understand.
because it's such a like an immediate thing, right? It's not
Right,
really like you decide over the long term, like who do you agree to associate. It's like you either do it right now or you don't, and the don't is, somebody might
right.
die. So that's
But
why.
should a doctor who say thinks Reagan is awful be able to say, I don't want to treat Ronald Reagan, even though he was shot in the chest and he's the president of the United States? Yeah, they should be. Doctors shouldn't be compelled at the point of a gun
Sure. Yeah, I think what I'm more thinking, I think like generally I would assume a hospital would have a policy like if somebody
Ah,
comes here, you as a doctor will treat you, and if you don't, we'll like sack you
well,
or
this is true,
sanction you
but
or
you know
something.
something? Even as a prosecutor, where I was doing a valid function of government and protecting people from those who initiated force and violence against people, if I morally had an objection to a case, I could say, please assign a different prosecutor. I don't
Mhm.
think we ought to be prosecuting this case. I think the same ought to be true for doctors. And I would be opposed to a hospital policy that says that doctors can't opt out. I really would. Doctors should
Even
not,
for like immediate thing, like I could see it for like like the example of like a dictator comes in and
right?
something, but like
But
a
your house example,
like right now this is happening and you're like the only doctor on duty or something like that.
well, I I can't force anyone to do something against their will, it seems to
Yeah,
me.
that's why I'm saying like a hospital policy, right? It's not a
Hospital policy.
government
Yeah,
like
I might lose my residency status with the hospital if I don't follow their rules, and they have a right to their own rules, absolutely. If I were a rational hospital, I think I would want rational doctors, though, too. And no, medical care, you introduce guns, and that includes the force of law, into medical care, education, anything else like that. You have created a morally perverse situation where neither the doctor nor the patient, in this case, in this context, really has the freedom of choice, do they?
yeah, but that's exactly because it's such a like an immediate thing. Because James, we have a pretty outside of Overton window views. I'm not sure if I'm happy
Yeah.
about like especially if it's like a yeah, like although I'm wondering even to some extent if like if you could be held liable. Let's say like the hospital has a policy, if you come here, you'll be treated, right? And when you have the ambulances like taking somebody, they'll probably going to the closest hospital. I think that is even like assumed. And the idea that, they take you to like specific hospital and then like everybody refuses to treat you there. I don't know if that's the kind of because I mean this is not like the that's what the government is about, and this is like the most fundamental issue because it is such a like an immediate thing, right? Because the alternative might be that this is not you refuse to sell
In
food to somebody.
nearly every
Yeah,
case, I think it would be moral to patch the person up. That is right. Unless you're facing like the house, you gave the house situation and you gave us a
sure,
dictator.
sure.
And so I'm actually thinking to myself, well, in that case, would it be completely moral for the doctor to refuse treatment? I say yes. He should at least have that freedom of choice to be able to make that decision. To compel someone to act against their own moral judgment in a case of serious moral question like that is wrong. Now, if he violates the hospital rules, let him face the hospital rules if he does that. And I think there would be hospital rules like that. But understand, it's not a question of your choice as a doctor or a hospital or a patient when it's socialized medicine. That's the point I'm making. How long was it before they suspended her? How many Jewish patients had to, who knows what kind of treatment they got from her, go to her as a physician? That's what happens when you've got socialized medicine. That's why it's the business of the British government to suspend her when she says stuff like this. It would normally just be a free speech matter and a matter for the free market to take care of. Believe me, there'd be plenty of groups that would publicize and ruin her career in a free market, in all likelihood, destroy her practice in a free market. When you've got government offering, right? Even if you can still go to a private doctor, if you've got socialized medicine and that's all that most people can afford for most of their medical care, come on. Jewish patients are going to be forced to go to her. Or those wacky Islamic patients who would choose to go to her can't use her while she's suspended. Both of which, it seems to me, are violations of rights. Both of which are taking this MD off the MD services train because of some legal rule. It shouldn't be equality before the law should not come up here. It should be the inequality that customers and providers should face in a free market. Now, Is she despicable? Is she vile? Is she a bigot? Is she a racist kind of anti-Semite? Absolutely. Does the National Health Service need to fire her, Keister? Yeah. I would be all in favor. I'd be high-fiving the NHS as they fire her sorry ass or bigoted ass because she's a knuckle-dragging barbarian who ought not to be giving anyone medical care, in my view. But if you, Daniel, wanted to go to her, knowing all this about her, you ought to be free to do so.
We have a super chat from PC. Thank you so much. It says, James, she should be deported. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. She's described as British Palestinian. I'm not 100% sure if she, because you cannot deport her if she is a citizen. So I'm not 100% sure if she is like a full-on citizen.
She just a resident, though, from the Middle East, or is, a legal resident, or is she an actual subject of the United Kingdom?
Yeah, we are not sure. She's described as British Palestinian. Usually, when somebody is, it implies citizenship. And if she's like an NHS doctor, I would assume that somebody has to be in a country for, I mean, just studying, doing all that. So, I let's assume so. But if she isn't, I'm not necessarily sure if that is
And I'm
enough for
not
that.
sure deportation would be the correct response either. If you saw her giving negligent care and she wasn't a legal citizen, maybe there's something. But again, I'm just stretching my mind. Again, if there was a free market in medicine, and if you actually have free speech, that's actually the combination that will be the answer here. She's made these tweets public. She's made her position known. It was a known controversy before they suspended her. Let the impact of that play out in the free market. Um, when it becomes the government's business, well, now the government is deciding that Jews must go to her for as a physician, or crazy Muslims who might want to go to her can't. That is wrong. That is wrong. Now, as I say, it'd be very poor judgment, even if you were a Muslim, to go to such a life-hating physician. An oxymoronic, phrase there, but she is definitely. Let's go further. She's a death-worshiping physician. Now, if you think you want to go to a death-worshiping physician, have at it. It's your life.
Jonathan in the chat says your needs are not a claim on others, and yeah, absolutely. But that's why sort of like the death, like for example, when like Charlie Kirk was shot, right? It's the idea that a doctor would like refuse treatment. I would find like problematic. And I was trying to find like another example of this, and I think it could be something. Imagine if you're like you're like a hired security guard at like a school, and there is like a school shooting, and you say, you know what, I don't want to deal with that, and you like go away. I think I almost view that similarly to like being a doctor at the hospital. Somebody comes in and like, you know what, I'm good. I'm not dealing with that. I almost view it similarly. That's why I almost think like, like if because it's like an immediate scenario, because the whole purpose of that is this like immediacy. Like, yeah, if there is an alternative, if this is like you're just choosing to do it, and it's like a treatment over like weeks or months when there is like the out of emergency scenario, I could see it. But the sort of immediate, like, yeah, I almost see it as like a
99 in
yeah.
99, maybe 99 plus percent of the cases, I think that would be the logic that they should. But you gave me the house example of a dictator. Is there an outer
Sure,
end?
no. With that, I agree. I'm talking about the immediacy, and I'm
Agree.
not even talking just sort of like morally, it's the right thing to do. But I
Right.
think like if somebody refuses, there should be some legal,
Of
uh,
course. Look,
yeah,
even if someone's cheated on their spouse, if someone's committed a theft, if someone stolen a car, obviously their life is more important than the crime they committed. In effect, truly, it is. And so, normally a doctor or nurse should not be going through that moral evaluation about this person. If it is, some famous, slaughtering African dictator, say Idi Amin comes and you recognize him as Idi Amin, I'm just keep saying, look, there's a context even for that.
yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I think we've covered that well enough. So, James, any last thoughts you have on? this woman.
No, no,
I should
she's a
mention
bigot.
we didn't talk about it, but there's also people can look it up. Dr. Ellen Kriesels, Kriesels. She's a pediatric consultant, and she's pretty much sanctioned for very much the similar thing. Also
Would you
talking
let
about
her touch your
Jewish. Yeah.
children? Would you let this bigot, this knuckle dragging bigot, touch her children? No, she's a disgusting racist. She is that disqualify at a level that disqualifies her from being any kind of healthcare professional, in my view. But that's my view. And the fact that we have to worry about physicians' politics, however, only really comes up because it's a national healthcare system you got there in Great Britain. Your beloved NHS makes the political opinions of your doctor your business, just as they make your neighbor's healthcare decisions your business. I don't want that to be my business or yours. It's my choice which doctor I go to. It's my choice, how much I eat this Thanksgiving. I'm in America, and how much exercise I get. Okay, it shouldn't be my neighbor's concern because those risks and those costs should be borne by me based on my choices. So, yeah, this is the hell of socialized medicine, my British friends, that you live under. It's a classic example. Whether it's Jewish patients who are going to be forced to take her as a physician, or whether crazy Muslims who might want her as a physician are not allowed to have her services. But is she a despicable human being who ought to be fired from the NHS? Absolutely. Now, I'm here. We're starting at a discussion on Sundays on Leonard Peikoff's Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, but you have to be a paid subscriber. But you want to get, if you want to get on the ground floor of our discussion of Dr. Leonard Peikoff's masterwork, the definitive work on Ayn Rand's philosophy, please join us and become a paid subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center UK.
And you can check us out on the reality show in just a few minutes, where we'll be talking about a transgender anti-Zionist rabbi who is a new part of Mamdani's transition team. So make sure to join us for that in just a few minutes. Thank you, James, for joining me here, and we'll see everybody in just a little bit. Bye bye.
Be safe.